Hey everyone, welcome to this reading. This reading is in regards to what lesson has been challenging for you to integrate or to master or to feel like you have some sort of level of success in terms of meeting it. So yeah, that's the intro for today. You have 4 piles to choose from. Always use your intuition. And as always, take what you need. Don't let the rest take from you. I forget what tarot reader I hear that from, but I say that to myself all the time now. And whenever you guys are ready, we'll jump right into these readings. What's up, pile number 1? Here's your reading for what lesson has been challenging for you to integrate. I have 2 oracles here. I have 2 channel messages from the universe, and I have 5 tarot cards. I haven't looked at anything. Well, I see the bottom of the deck right here, but that's it. Otherwise, we're going to do this real time together because I just liked how that flowed last time we did that on the last lesson video. So yeah, let's jump right into it. So what lesson has been challenging for you? For pile number 1, please, Spirit. Surrender. All right. So, I mean, we could probably leave the reading right here, right now. Just kidding. So I feel like for my pile number 1s, like this is, I feel like pretty straightforward. What I'm hearing is it can be challenging for you to go with the flow because I do see the bottom of your deck here with the Page of Wands. I feel like there's an element of you that likes to be in control of things, or I feel like for my pile number 1s, this is a group that would confuse like surrender with laziness, right? I feel like, I mean, ultimately the energy that I gather from this individual that's on this card, I mean, she looks like someone who knows what the fuck she wants, right? So I feel like you guys are individuals that essentially kind of know what you want, you know what you're about, you know why you're here. I feel like there is an element of impatience when it comes to you guys. Or just feeling like things aren't happening on your timeline. I'm hearing too that this is something that this has been a recurring theme within this incarnation, and that you will also have situations that kind of like force you into a state of surrender. So you might like get sick like once every few months or once every year and be like completely healthy, like mentally, physically, emotionally, right? Or something might happen like to you physically to where, you know, you can't exercise every day, or you can't go into work, or you can't bulldoze your way through whatever, because ultimately you guys wield a lot of power. I'm almost seeing this as like the magician's wand, right? You guys wield a lot of power. I feel like there's just most certainly this sense of like feeling like if it's gonna get done, you gotta get it done, and you needed to get it done yesterday. There is also an element of like perfectionism here. You know, this can manifest in a variety of ways, but I am seeing a lot about the body here, like physical body, like physically slowing down too. Like maybe it's challenging for you to like take a break, or to even just like kick back and relax. Or maybe when you do, there's like this element of like guilt that you experience. But I'm hearing ultimately there's definitely a resistance to like the positive elements of the feminine, right? And yeah, I just continue to hear that certain things will happen in your life that kind of force you to slow down and force you into the state of surrender, and it pisses y'all off. It pisses my pile number 1 off, and I feel like you guys get it though. You're like, oh, like I knew that, like I know why this is happening on a deeper level, and then maybe you integrate that for a little bit. Maybe you integrate those codes of surrender for a little bit, and it feels good. I feel like when my pile number 1, it does have that nice balance to their masculine side, and what that means is like, you guys are probably very creative. You probably are like extreme go-getters. You probably have like a lot of first house placements, or at the very least, maybe 10th house placements, or, you know, something that elements that just all in all contribute to you just being someone that like knows what you want, wants to go after it, and like once you see something, it's like you don't see anything else, right? And so there might be like moments where spirit is just trying to get you to slow down, to be like, hey, this, you could actually enjoy the journey a little bit more, right? You can enjoy this flow, you can enjoy things. Like you can collapse a timeline actually when, you know, there's that saying that some of you guys have probably heard me say before, like when Abraham Lincoln was asked about chopping down a tree, he said if he had 5 minutes, he'd spend the first 3 minutes sharpening his axe, because he understood that the condition of his axe was more important than the actual act of what he's doing. So, you know, if you're running on fumes, my pile number 1, I'm hearing that it's just important to remember that you can get a lot more done when you learn how to integrate, and you can accomplish a lot more a lot sooner than I think you even realize. But that's part of this challenge. That's part of these spiritual lessons that we have, is we think we know what's best for us, right? We think we know like the way to get something done, even despite our best wisdom. That's like one of the three in Ayurveda. They talk about the 3 root causes of disease. And one of them is crimes against wisdom, crimes against your better wisdom. So like knowing something, like deeply feeling something to be true, but like then not acting on that wisdom and still keep going about whatever it is that you feel like is just natural to you, or whatever karmic propensities, you know, feel natural to you. So acting against your better judgment, acting against your better wisdom, right? And so I feel like with this pile number 1, it's like I feel like you kind of know that you could pump the brakes a little bit. And that would actually help and catapult you even farther, even quicker. But for whatever reason, there might just be like this element of feeling like you're giving up a sense of control when you're doing that, right? So next we have the temple. So, oh my God, like what else do we have more about really connecting with spirit here? So what I love about this element now that we have the temple coming in is that this really does tell me that this is more so like when you're taking time to surrender, it's not like you're just like completely disconnecting. And I feel like for my pile number 1s, the reason why it's so challenging for you guys is because your perspective around like breaks, or your perspective around surrender, is not in alignment with the truth of it. Right? So it's like when you're surrendering, when you're taking space to like watch Netflix for a weekend, or when you're going to the beach, when you're disconnecting from your socials, when you're not answering emails, like that's you, and you give yourself space to really connect with yourself, right? Your innermost self, which is God, right? That's like you're refueling, or you're refilling your wellspring. Right? You can't continue to draw buckets of water out of an empty well. So I feel like you have a distorted relationship to what it means to surrender, what it means to take a break. I've had many people be like, you know, surrender, people, you know, that are like, oh, law of attraction, it'll just come to me. That's so skewed. That's such a skewed perspective. That's only seeing one dimension of something. And it's not necessarily about what it looks like on the outside, but it's about the place someone is in when they're doing anything is what matters. And so if your intention is to refuel, if your intention is, I'm doing this to uplift myself so I can be a better vessel for the rest of humanity, and so I can better serve my dharma, then, you know, that's what you're going to get, right? And then you're naturally, if that's your intention, you're going to be drawn to those elements and those ways of surrendering, those ways of, you know, practicing coming back to your inner temple. You're going to be drawn to those ways that are much more authentic, much more organic, and that are actually going to fulfill that very pure intention of just wanting to be a better vessel. Because you guys are out there, you guys are doing your thing, you guys are starting projects, you guys are go-getters. I feel like you guys know what you're about. And I feel like there's a lot you want to do in one incarnation, and it's like, but what's the rush, right? When you're coming from this, again, it's where you're coming from that makes the biggest difference. So if you're coming from a place of like, I got to get all of this done, I got to get all of this out, and I needed to get it out yesterday, it's like that's coming from a place of like impatience. And not only that, it's kind of rooted in fear, right? It's rooted in this idea that like I have to save the world, or I got to build my business, or like the more that I produce, the more that I'm going to get noticed. When, you know, we're in an era where it's really the quality of things is much more important than the quantity of things, right? And so like taking time to restore, you know, that inner wellspring is going to put so much more power. Like there's going to be, your projects are going to be infused with such greater magnetism. And I feel like until you start to see this and actually practice this, it's just going to remain an idea, or it's just going to remain something like, oh yeah, like that tarot reader, I always hear this. People keep telling me this. I keep seeing surrender and like things about taking a break in my external reality, but you know, I'm not going to heed those synchronicities. That just must be a coincidence. That's not for me, right? No, it's like until you start to experience the fruitage of this and start to experience that, like what's most important, what comes most. There's a reason in the Bible it says, like, what does it say? I go before you in everything I do, or something like that. It's like making that conscious connection and knowing that spirit goes before you, making that conscious connection with source in whatever ways, as much as you can, as often as you can, like going to the one the fabric that creates this very, like, creates everything up in the first place, like going to that first and foremost and knowing that that's gonna dictate all of your affairs. I mean, that's kind of like, that's what I want to have, like conducting my affairs. And that's kind of the piece that surpasses all understanding, right? As when you're making that conscious connection, you're refueling your wellspring, so to speak. Yeah, so I'm going to see what else the tarot has to say, because I could go on here. So we have the 10 of Wands. So this tells me burnout. You guys probably do experience burnout quite often because you are just trying to bulldoze through things because you're not taking time, really. Yeah, there's definitely this element of fear infused with, like, I feel like you guys just are really in tune with the masculine element, whether you are feminine or whether you're female or male in this incarnation. You guys are really in tune with, like, the yang principle and just like the going out, the getting it done, very electric, you know, a lot of electricity behind you guys. And yeah, again, I keep hearing your guides saying until pile number 1 actually gives themselves permission, like over a span of time, to like practice this, not just once, but multiple times. And when it's in a point where you guys aren't forced into that state, then it's like, you're going to be like, how the fuck did I ever live otherwise? Like, how did I just run off of the very little fumes that I had in the first place? Like, you guys are going to, I feel like, have so much refuge within the feminine element and within your inner temple once you really do start to touch this nectar that really, I feel like maybe you guys are seeking from, like, those accomplishments. You're seeking that kind of like gratification that you get when you know you're making a difference in people's lives, and you know that you're on the right path, and you know that, like, what you're doing externally is in alignment with your dharma. It's like that nectar, man. It's when you really start to touch into that wellspring, the journey becomes even more infused with, like, gratitude and awe and beauty. And yeah, it's like putting that's really what it means to put the horse in front of the carriage. And what I was trying to get at about, like, letting God go before you in your affairs, like making that conscious connection every day. And it's like, that's what you're drawing upon, and you're not drawing upon your own willpower and, you know, essentially accidentally finding yourself in this state of burnout, right? We have the 4 of Cups. So, you know, this card in this deck talks about like greed, most importantly, and not being able to see, like, the glass half empty type of mentality. So maybe that's part of it too. Maybe part of the reason why you guys have a hard time surrendering, and part of this challenge or this lesson that's been challenging to integrate, is you feel like if you give yourself a break, that, you know, somehow materially or maybe even emotionally in some senses, that you will be missing out on. Or so, like, again, it's like the place you're coming from is what matters the most. So maybe you guys are like, I can't give up, I can't surrender, because you feel like the second you start to let up, that you're going to see, like, a decrease in your assets that you've been working so hard after. But I'm hearing again, what's most important is, like, that interconnection with God. Again, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all else shall be added unto you. And it's like, this all sounds like garbage, this sounds like bullshit, until we really start to see and integrate and at least give ourselves permission to explore what the fuck that means, and why every major religious text talks about that, just in different words, right? So I feel like, again, where this place that you're coming from might be one where it's like there's a lack mentality that you guys are sitting in, and so that's why you reach burnout so much. And maybe you are experiencing a lot of fatigue in your day-to-day, and so maybe this is just again, releasing a little bit of your personal will, personal control. And like Ramana Maharshi said so oftentimes, and I'm totally going to butcher this and paraphrase, but he would say oftentimes, like, many people choose to carry their luggage on the train. Like, if you get on a train, think of that as like this journey that we're all on, right? This journey of life. So we're on this train, and a lot of us want to carry this bullshit. We want to carry our baggage with us, right? Versus just like, put your baggage down and let God do it, right? Like, God, the train, let it just like carry it for you. And so I feel like that's really what's coming through here, is turning to the temple within a bit more, finding the kingdom within yourself. We have the 8 of Swords coming up. So yeah, I'm hearing that there's a lot of anxiety around surrender for whatever reason, a lot of misperceptions, a lot of like misbeliefs about what that means. And it's not a giving up, right? It's really just about like, literally, it really is. I don't know how else to say this. Actually, I say it so many times in so many different ways, but I feel like for you guys, it might be very useful for my pile number 1s to like read books about people that really practice meditation. Like, read about Ram Dass, read about Yogananda, read about like, what is her name? Ananda Mayama, like these Indian saints, Ramana Maharshi, like they do such a beautiful job. It's like, go to the teachers. It's so important that we have teachers that don't tell us how to live our lives, but at the very least, that they do such a beautiful job at explaining the necessity for meditation, right? The necessity for that and the science behind it, and even just like the spirituality behind it, which, you know, science is just now catching up to it. But going to those teachers, Joel Goldsmith, so like tuning into them so much as you need to remind you why the fuck you need to meditate, right? Why you need to have states of inner calm and inner peace, and where you're not so caught up in this illusion outside, right? Because then you're swept up in it just as much as anyone else, and you're probably not going to be enjoying it. Yeah, we have the Six of Wands. So I do see victory for you guys. I do see you emerging from this. I actually do see you guys integrating this lesson and at least trying, maybe even if it's just like for 3 minutes every morning, meditating, just like clearing your thoughts, clearing your mind completely, just 3 minutes, right? Or just like whatever you know you can be consistent at. 3 minutes every three days, I don't know, but something where you can be consistent, where you're not biting off more than you can chew. But I am hearing that because you were drawn to this video, you do know that there's a different way you could be going about things, and you could be much more productive in a much different way. I feel like you're now open and receptive to what, you know, these forced pauses or things that like you're trying so hard, but it continues to fall apart. It's because the way that you're coming at it is not in the highest of integrity in terms of what your higher self wants you, like why you're engaging in the world of form isn't for the form itself, it's for these spiritual lessons, right? And so there's an imbalance that has happened for my pile number ones that really wants to be restored. And last card, not fucking surprised, the Hermit. So if this like beautifully sums up everything, and I do have channeled messages for you guys, but I mean, that couldn't have like panned out any more perfectly. Meditation, stillness, contemplation, you're going to receive a lot of insight. I'm hearing that you're even like, it's interesting because there's some of you guys that have been wondering what to tweak in your day-to-day experience and what in your business affairs, and there's certain like this one challenge is going to help all of these other little loose ends that you have going on, my pile number one. And so it's really again about surrendering, opening yourself up to that, right? This is going to help tie off so many more loose strings, because like there's a saying of prayer is when we talk to God, and meditation is when God has a chance to talk to us. I cannot attest to that more. Some of my best business ideas and some of my best like little things that I, Marissa, never would have thought of, or would have been like, okay, that seems so silly, right? Those tiniest adjustments have brought in a wellspring of like me seeing the extent of my impact, or me being able to really feel and deeply like push me along my own dharmic path, because what we know about the road less traveled, it's not paved out for you. And so sometimes you can get really down on yourself, or sometimes you can be like, okay, is this really what the fuck I'm supposed to be doing, right? But then spirit will guide you to these avenues that shows you, yes, you're on the right path if you would just let me help you out, right? You don't have to do it alone. What God has done before, he will do for me and more. I love that. And this, like, what I love about this is like other people, right? Again, this is to me tuning into those other teachers that really talk. Kyle Cease too. I hope you guys write down all these teachers that I've said, but these are all teachers that talk about why we meditate, why we make conscious connection with God every single day, source, whatever you want to call it. Some people have a distorted relationship to the word God because they grew up in like distorted religions, right? Or people that like spoke the word, but like actually had never touched it or felt it themselves, right? Go to those people that teach you why it's so important and imperative to meditate. And because when you're just letting your small mind like regurgitate itself and like, those karmic tendencies and your subconscious to kind of like regurgitate itself over and over again, you're not, don't expect to get very far. But when you are clearing your mind and allowing God to come through your crown chakra and kind of like reassemble you and realign you and just kind of make those little tweaks within your subconscious, within your psyche, it's like the smallest things you do are going to open the biggest doorways, I swear. And you're never going to know. We never fully know from this level, but again, it's because what you're regurgitating, what you're continuing to do over and over again is like what you've always known. It's what you think is possible. It's the limited self. The ego is trying to protect you, right? And so by expanding yourself, by allowing something that has greater access to greater timelines and more access to what's actually going to get you to where you want to be a lot faster with the most amount of fulfillment along the way. So fulfillment for yourself as you're also going out there and helping to impact the world. You know, that's who I want to tune into, you know, peace and love to the ego, but it's like, you know, letting that be your servant and not be your master, right? And last but not least, we have the simple rules. The simple rules are fearless faith, non-resistance, and love. Yep, so I feel like that really sums up this surrender card. Fearless faith, non-resistance, and love. We're not acting from a place of fear. We're not sowing seeds out of fear. We're not sowing seeds out of like, you know, I don't want to like be broke. I don't want my numbers to go down. I don't want my following to decrease. I don't want my clients to stop tuning in. Whatever it is, whatever you guys are doing, however this applies, right? Non-resistance, right? And we learn the art of non-resistance through meditation. We learn where we are still attached to our ideas of how things should be through what causes us suffering, right? And we learn the extent of that attachment by how deep that suffering feels, right? And just ultimately, you know, being in this state of just appreciating all of the appearances but not getting lost in them, appreciating all of these thoughts and everything that's happening and all of the permission slips we have to get closer to God. Because I'm hearing for you guys, like, again, we had that notion coming through of like things will happen to pile number one that puts them on their ass and forces them in this state, right? That's not as a punishment. It's because spirit knows what's going to holistically keep you happy, true happiness, which is essentially what we think we're going after when we're trying to like overly exert ourselves and overly expend ourselves. We feel like we're creating security for ourselves so that we can be happy. It's like, believe it or not, you can be happy as you are creating that for yourself. And that's actually, you're building that happiness on a foundation that is actually, it's a true foundation versus this building it on a mirage, building it on an illusion of a foundation. So I'm going to leave this here for now. This was a lot longer than I thought it would be, pile number one, but I hope this brought confirmation, peace, clarity to your heart today. If it did, please give this video a thumbs up, comment any synchronicities down below, and I hope I see you guys soon. What's up, group number two? Here is your reading for what lesson has been challenging for you guys to integrate. And we have a few tarot cards here, a few oracles, and 2 channeled messages from the universe that I haven't looked at any of these. Well, I saw 2 cards, but that's not enough to give me a full picture of what's going on. So we're going to do the rest together. Yeah, take a deep breath and let's jump right into your reading. So Spirit, please tell us about pile 2, what challenge or what lesson has been challenging for them to integrate. Your first card is Crises. Oh, I've never actually seen this card before. We have Crises coming up. So maybe for you guys, there is, because I do see the bottom of your deck, so maybe for you guys, there has been an inability to reframe why these challenges or why these crises seem to happen. So I feel like for you guys, there might be an element where it feels unfair. It feels very unfair that these things continue to resurface in your reality. I feel like there's a part of you that feels like there's people out to get you, right? It looks like there's a bunch of women that are like, you know, have the evil eye. I just saw 111 on the clock, that have the evil eye on you. The element of 3, because we had 3 ones, and then I'm seeing 3 beings here too. So 333 might be also a significant number, or 133 might be a powerful number for you guys. But ultimately, I'm just seeing that you guys might feel like that there's people out to get you, or that there's ultimately that like you're waiting for the next shoe to drop. It's like the lesson that is challenging for you guys to integrate is like reframing this in a way so that you're not continuing to invite in experiences. Like there's a phrase, live by the sword, die by the sword. So essentially how I interpret that is, if you are living from the realms of like, okay, if you're existing within the realms that suggest that someone sending you the evil eye is going to have an effect on you, then it's going to have an effect on you. But if you're living within the realms of being like, no, there's only one source, there's only one power, and as long as I'm tuning into that one power every single day, then my challenges will be taken care of for me. It's like you're existing in a different realm to where the sword can't even fucking touch you, right? So I feel like there's a necessity for my pile number 2s to reframe what these crises are and to reframe what it's here to usher you into. And my most humble of experiences, and if you're drawn to my channel, like, then this, you know, there's a reason you're drawn to my channel. There's a reason that you're drawn to me, who in this incarnation, I have had a lot of suffering, right? We all do. However, there's a difference between people that utilize that suffering to perpetuate a victim story, and there's a difference between people that utilize that suffering to help set them free, right? Because ultimately, Ram Dass says, suffering is grace, right? Why is suffering grace? That sounds shitty. Why did all the yogis and the mystics beg for suffering? Because suffering shows you where you are still attached, right? And your attachments keep you bound. That's not freedom. If you're attached to something, if you're bound to something, that's the opposite of freedom. Right? And so anything that is keeping you bound, anything that's keeping you in the state of limitation is not, you want to see that. That's why suffering is grace. You want to set yourself free, because it's only a matter of time that internal freedom has those external ramifications as well. So I'm hearing that there's definitely a reframing that needs to happen. We're going to get deeper into this. We have the ocean. So yeah, it's like, I just saw 333 on the clock too. So yeah, there's like, there's a level, you're staying on the surface, pile number 2. It's like an inability to go deeper into what these are here to show you. Again, because we do have the Hanged Man at the bottom of the deck. There was strength was at the bottom, and for whatever reason, I didn't do this for the first pile, but I moved strength into the tarot card pile. I moved it into the tarot card pile, and then I saw this at the bottom, which the first pile I didn't. I just left it there. So I feel like there's definitely a reason this all played out the way that it did, right? No accidents exist in my world, at least, right? And so the Hanged Man is literally the card that talks about seeing something from a different perspective, right? And so I feel like these crises, it will seem a lot less, it's less about this challenge, this lesson overall is not about the challenges. It's about, again, it's showing you where you're still caught up in your own mental narrative of how things should be in order to make you happy. And if you need to be happy, if like controlling your external reality is what you need in order to make you happy, I'm sorry, my friends, you are setting yourself up for the utmost misery. Because as long as you're investing your treasures up where moth and dust will corrupt, so in this world of form where everything is changing, everything is transient, nothing is going to stay the same. Right? So even when you get something that you don't want, that's going to change eventually. So like rest assured, but even getting something that you do want, that's going to change eventually too. Right? So it's just like being in a state of equanimity within yourself so these things can come and go. And so your peace is undisturbed regardless. Right? And so that's where spirit, like that's part of why this lesson, these challenges, these crises seem to continue to happen over and over again for my pile number 2s is you're not penetrating the level of depth that spirit is trying to guide you into, right? You're taking this for the surface level, right? You're staying on the surface level of things when spirit is like, we're trying to draw pile number 2 deeper unto themselves, right? And so we're going to get deeper into the tarot. So what else do we have? We have the Son of Swords. So the Knight of Swords. So cutting through the bullshit, there might be for you guys, it might be a hastiness of your mind that you tend to immediately go to of like, how do I fix this? Or like, how do I solve this? But it's on the level of like externally, when again, spirit wants you to come more to the realms of perception. There's a lot about wings here and feathers here. I'm seeing like the bat, the owl. I mean, whatever these creatures are, have wings. So feathers or wings, birds might be significant for you guys. Something about flapping or the way that it sounds. But ultimately, yeah, not rushing to your conclusions, not rushing to your immediate default way of relating to these crises, right? Not rushing and, when you're caught in the realms of mind, right? You're just going to perpetuate stories. You're attaching to stories. You're creating more karma for yourself, right? So there's a level here of like needing to release. Like the next time a crisis happens or the next time you're going out and you're like approaching this crisis or whatever might be going on in your life right now, might be a big crisis that's happening. It's like meeting it from a level of like where I actually had this realization today, which I feel like we always have, like, I've had this before, but you get it to different levels of it is so, I'm very good at giving other people advice in situations because like I'm detached ultimately from the outcome of it, but I know I'm sitting in a place where I have their best interest and I can see what's going to help set them free, right? But when it comes to me in my own life, like, yes, I can, certain principles, right? I do abide by what I teach. I absolutely do, or I wouldn't be teaching because I feel like that's very hypocrisy. There's a reason why every major religion talks about hypocrisy, right? So I do practice what I preach. But essentially, I do notice that there is a bit more of a resistance when it's like, I just told this person not to do what it is I'm exactly about to do right now. Like getting swept up in this like love thing, or like my illusion of like where this timeline is going or whatever, right? Versus just like taking my hands out of it and just like, you know, being present to it. Right. And so like these are all a very delicate balance, because it's like, yeah, you can have this higher wisdom and still that karma might still need to play itself out. Right. So pile number 2, I'm hearing that it's like, maybe even for some of you guys, it's like you kind of know what this Knight of Swords, like, you know better, but you don't know why this keeps happening, or you don't know why you still get caught up in it, even though, again, just like I said, you know better. It's like, I know I shouldn't be getting wrapped up in this bullshit. I know it's so petty, but why can I not resist it, right? So there's a deeper element here that you might not be seeing of like understanding karmic propensities and karmic runoff, right? So just because you have these massive awakenings, it doesn't mean your paradigm is going to shift instantaneously overnight, right? You still have that karmic runoff. You still have energy that is, and belief systems and ways of being that have gained a certain amount of momentum in your experience. Right? And so that kind of needs to run itself off before those scales can tip into where you've created different karmic tendencies, right? And karmic doesn't, I feel like there's a negative connotation. Karma just is essentially energy, right? So a different relationship to your external reality. So that might be an aspect here too, of like, there might just be a frustration of why do I know better and I'm not doing better? It's like, you're doing better, like you're knowing better, but that integration, your nervous system, the subtle body, the physical purging of the cells, that takes a little bit longer of a time, to catch up with. So again, there's a lot of aspects here. There's a lot of like seeing things just on the surface and really wanting to go deeper into it. And so I feel like that's probably why your guides guided you here. Yeah, being able to see, greater illumination is what I'm hearing with the Sun card. So there's a deep desire for you to receive illumination and for you to receive clarity around these things, right? And I'm hearing the more that you remove your sense of identity, again, coming back to that example of like, what would you tell someone else in your position? And this is oftentimes where I've heard people say, like Lee Harris. I think it was Lee Harris that did this, but I used to do this too, like higher self channeling. So getting a journal, and if you were your higher self, what would your higher self give to this version of yourself right now in terms of this situation? That's a really great way to remain in your power and not to think that someone else external from you has the answers and you don't, right? Because I feel like a big part of this lesson and this challenge that you are experiencing, whether it's one or whether it's a series of crises and challenges, it is about trusting yourself ultimately and taking you deeper into yourself. So some sort of higher self channeling, or where it seems like, you're opening yourself up to receive the wellspring that lies within you and not necessarily relying on external things, right? Next, we have the Two of Pentacles. So again, coming to a state of like equilibrium, maintaining balance, even in the face of these crises. Let's see what else is coming through. We have the Ace of Wands and we have Strength. There's a lot of fire here. So there's a lot of deep craving of wanting to understand something, right? The element of fire is very perceptive. The element of fire is able to digest experiences and able to assimilate the nutrients of things, which is I'm not surprised you would be drawn to this pile, because it seems like you're really wanting to get to the bottom of something. So this could be encouraging you to turn to teachers or turn to people that are able to help cultivate an expanded perception. So you're not as, like Ram Dass, for example, like, the way that he approaches like the human experience, he could be talking about an experience that seems completely unrelated to my own human experience, but because he's sitting from the level of the soul when he's talking about it, it applies to everyone, and it can apply to the entire human experience, right? But if he were to be sitting at the level of his personality and the level of his ego, then it would be a lot harder to relate to it, right? And so I'm feeling like with this Hanged Man energy and this Strength energy, it's like really pushing yourself beyond the limitations of your current paradigm and really like doing your best to like, sometimes I feel like there's a level of surrender that's necessary. Like pile 1 was all about surrender. For pile number 2, this is really about pushing yourself to see through a more expanded lens of perception. So like pushing yourself, like really utilizing external force and like utilizing your willpower, your own individual willpower, in order to illuminate this area, in order to have greater depth, right? With this Hangman too, it's like, it's interesting because we are definitely getting a lot about surrender, right? There's a lot about letting go. There's a lot about seeing things from a different perspective. However, for you, pile number 2, I'm seeing that for you guys, there might be a necessity to get an outside opinion from someone whose perception is already much more expanded around not even just this crisis. It could be around this whatever you're experiencing. It could be around this one area that you're experiencing, but I feel like this is holistically has to do with life in general, or it has to do with your perception of the nature of reality in general, right? I mean, again, because in my most humble of experiences, and if you're drawn to my channel, it's much less about getting swept up in the melodrama, and it's much more about what is going to allow me to stay in this internal state of freedom, what is going to allow me to maintain my balance in all of my affairs, right? What is going to allow me to keep my inner fire alive, right? That's not going to like squelch my fire, right? And it's really about, you know, the deeper you go unto yourself, yeah, the deeper you go in, the more you meet truth. All right, this just says, you will do that when you've gone inside to see where you are beyond the things in you which attract you and seduce you and excite you and repel you. The journey across the great ocean of existence is a journey inward, ever and deeper, and the deeper you get in, the more you meet truth. I feel like that's what's being called of you right here, going in deeper so you can meet truth, so you can see it never was about this. It never was about whatever it continues to reoccur. It was never about whatever, you know, lawsuit or whatever custody battle, whatever, you know, bullshit that's happening with your boss. It's never about that, right? It's all trying to point you into a true point of strength. So no matter what happens externally, you are good, right? You are set. I'm definitely seeing a correlation between this, maintaining equilibrium, and the strength that it takes to maintain equilibrium when you are face to face with a crisis, when you are face to face with shit hitting the fan, right? And the necessity to maintain, to get yourself in a place where you're not getting swept up in the bullshit, where you're suspended above it, so you can really meet these challenges from a place that is actually going to holistically shift your paradigm and your reality. And so you're not just, you know, trying to solve the problem on the same level that it's occurring, which is just going to keep you in that same paradigm, that same energy, right? So last but not least, I am a distributor of God power, a vessel of divinity. I feel like the Sun card, the Strength card, the Ace of Wands really does drive this home. Really does drive this home, or this this channeled message. I'm a distributor of God power, right? So not feeling like a victim. Again, taking yourself, not saying that you guys necessarily feel this way, but I feel like there's just a sense of like almost feeling like this is not perfect, or this is not also God working in your affairs, or source working in your affairs, right? Because sometimes when these challenges come up, we can be like, what? I'm doing my best. Why the fuck is this happening? I'm really trying my best here. Like what's happening is like Spirit is really trying you to, again, through these crises, through these attachments, trying to show you where you were still giving your power away, where you're still not fully owning yourself and fully owning your power. And yeah, and when we are fooled, and when we start to take the bait that something outside of us can take away our sense of security, or take away our sense of peace, or that can have any effect on our inner state, you're giving your power away, right? And so that's what Spirit's trying to help reframe you. Like as long as you're maintaining connection with that internal source, that inner self, it's like whatever happens externally, I mean, you're going to act from a place of such wisdom and such integrity that it's going to feel like your battles are being fought for you, pile number 2. Yeah, the last channeled message we have, there are no lost opportunities in the kingdom. As one door shuts, another door opens. So yeah, I was kind of getting this energy of feeling like things just like, maybe feeling like things, it's like one thing after another, things not working out, or like again, trying your best just to have things fall through. But again, it's like there's a huge necessity here to see it from a different perspective. If it was meant for you, it will not pass you by. And if it's passing you by, understand that there's a reason for that, right? And that it's much less about the form. Spirit doesn't care about whether you seize that opportunity or not. It's about what was that there on an energetic level? What did you integrate? On an energetic level, what did you embody more of, and what did you release that was not in alignment with your soul stream, that was not supportive of your soul's blueprint and what it is that you came here to do, right? So there are no lost opportunities, right? And so even when you think that you fucked up, even when you thought you made the wrong decision, you know, see how that there's no wrong decision. Maybe that could be part of the reason why you feel like you're in a crisis, because it's like, God, why the fuck did I do this? I thought I was following my highest inspiration. I thought it was A, B, C, D, and it didn't work out. It's because there's something about this that you're not seeing that requires a level of depth, that requires you going deeper into yourself to see beyond the surface of things. And for some of you guys, that will really require you doing your best to expand your levels of perception into the nature of reality holistically, right? And really seeing what this whole reality is all about. And really, you know, going to those teachers that don't make it about form. It's not about the form. It's about, it's truly is about where you are keeping yourself shackled, where you are internally, externally, you have these attachments, these desires are attachments. Desires create suffering just as much as when you're trying to run away from something because it makes you uncomfortable, because it shows a part of yourself that you feel like you're not ready to face, right? So doing research and diving into teachings, contemplating within yourself what that means to you. Right, there's something that these are holistically trying to expand, rapidly expand you past even caring what is happening externally and being like, okay, it's just another thing that's passing by. Just another thing that's passing by. Here today, gone tomorrow. All right, pile 2, I'm going to leave this reading here for now. If you had any synchronicities come up, please comment those down below if it resonates. At the very least, if it resonated, please like this video, subscribe if you've been in here before, and I hope I see you soon. What's up, group 3? Welcome to your reading for what lesson has been challenging for you to integrate. We're going to dive into, we have some tarot that I haven't looked at. We have 2 oracles I haven't looked at, 2 channeled messages. We're going to do this all together, real time, getting advice from your guides along the way as always. So please spirit tune us into pile number 3. What is it? What lesson is currently challenging for them to integrate, and why? We have inspiration. Okay, I actually did see the Ace of Wands flip over when I was shuffling your tarot cards. It came out, so I mean that kind of definitely solidifies or reinforces what the message is here today. So maybe for my pile number 3, you guys are having a hard time feeling inspired in life. You guys might be feeling like you're going through like a dark night of the soul, or like feeling very depressed. I'm hearing first thing that just came through is like, you know, pile number 3 needs to remember, or is being invited to remember, to not attach their identity to the energies, that the fluctuations that come and go, and that are, you know, just part of being a mammalian and taking like a human incarnation, right? Not attaching your identity to these things. So if you can, don't label yourself, right? If you can, release yourself from these labels. Doesn't mean that you're, you know, just because you're choosing to empower yourself by not attaching your identity to a label and something that's transient, doesn't mean that you're burying your head and being like, this is not real, right? You can experience what it is that you need to experience without reinforcing it by attaching a label to yourself, because getting a little bit multidimensional here, but you know, those labels have reality bubbles of their own. I've actually written full ass articles about this. Like, if you attach yourself to a label, your identity to a label, especially if you're a highly sensitive soul like myself, all the ideas that people have and that are contributing, all the ideas around that label that people infuse into this reality bubble and this paradigm, then influences you until you develop a state of awareness and sovereignty within yourself until you can recognize that, right? So that was a tangent, but ultimately do not attach your sense of identity to whatever is happening. But you guys might just be feeling like you're in a rut, like you feel like you don't know where else to go. You feel like you don't know which direction to take. I also did see the Ace of Swords pop up too. So you might just be waiting for an aha moment or a moment of clarity, or you're just like, Spirit, just give me something, right? Like, give me a new direction. Like, I feel like you guys have a lot of gifts or a lot of talents, a lot of like things, like you see how you have potential and you're like, I want to actualize my potential. I want to step into my potential. And it can be frustrating because you don't know how to, or you don't know like how to practically apply what it is that you came in with, or practically apply your gifts and practically apply like, how can this sustain me, right? How can this holistically be like my thing, right? So we're going to get deeper into this. message today, what else Spirit has for you. We have, oh my gosh, Alethea. So yeah, because I did see the Ace of Wands, which clarified this. I feel like the Ace of Swords clarifies this. This talks about a moment of truth. I feel like if anything, your guides are coming through and being like, it's closer than you think. Like you are going to have like a significant realization very soon. That is going to, like, this card feels like a breath of fresh air. That's something I remember when I've read the definition of this before. Like there's certain initiations, and so you might be going through, like, this just might be a really powerful initiation period you're going through, since this is an initiation card and there's only 8 of these in this like huge deck. But some of these cards of truth like can be very like apocalyptic. Like apocalypsis is one of the ways of like removing the veil of illusion that leaves us feeling very disillusioned and very like, what the fuck just happened? like, well, like questioning everything. But this card reveals truth to us in a way that feels like you're taking off a tight jacket, right? Something that allows you to feel free and just like, oh my God, I can breathe, right? And so at the very least, I feel like Spirit is coming through and saying, why is this lesson? Why is this challenging for you? It might just be because you feel like there's something wrong with you. It might ultimately just be because you feel like you're flawed, or because you're not seeing the duality, right? You're caught in the duality when Spirit is trying to take you outside of it and being like, this is just part of the human experience, right? I feel like that's probably why I was also guided to go on that tangent in the beginning, that very multidimensional tangent, is because you guys my pile 3s might be very lost in just the 3rd dimension and making this mean something about you. That's why you're feeling so stuck, is because you're only existing at one level. When you're seeing through more of the eyes of God, you start to care less about what the 3D is suggesting to you. And you're able to tune into like, why is this relevant for my soul's blueprint? Why I'm in this period? What codes are being activated? What codes are being integrated? Am I going through a period where I'm healing from something traumatic, right? Is something resurfacing trauma that happened 7 years ago, 10 years ago, that has been activated recently, and I just need time to surrender? Right? So that's understanding that there's many more factors at play here, versus just like, I'm not good enough, or like I haven't made the right connections, or like even just saying that, like I feel just like, it feels like so bleak and so bland, right? Because the more that you're just seeing through a very narrow lens of perception, the more contracted you're going to feel, right? But the more that you're expanding your paradigms and expanding and encompassing more of this multidimensional nature of yourself, the more that you're going to feel free, regardless of what's happening, what seems to be happening or not happening for you in the world of form. But I feel like, ultimately this lesson, this challenge is like, maybe in general, when you do get in these periods of feeling like you're in a rut, or feeling like you've been a dark night of the soul, you make that mean you're doing something wrong. You make that mean that you have taken steps back, that you're not as evolved as you think you are. But Spirit is just like, no, this is part of taking a human birth. This is part of, being in a world of form. There's going to be duality. You can't know true peace and true freedom if you haven't experienced the opposite of those things. So I feel like for you guys, it's really just, this lesson has been challenging for you to integrate, and you might actually be perpetuating and prolonging this period of feeling dull, of lacking inspiration, because you're attaching ideas to it that are rooted in illusion, right? And so if you're attaching ideas, if illusion is what you're buying into, that's what you're going to see more of. You're going to continue to think the mirage is actually what it is. Versus when you're like, no, what is the truth of this? The truth of this is I'm just like a tiny human having this like tiny experience, and that everyone, no matter how evolved they are, will have these very human experiences. That's why I love teachers like Ram Dass. That's why I love like my Kundalini yoga teacher. These very beings that they are very highly advanced souls, but they are also very honest of like, you're gonna have these experiences. Ram Dass would say oftentimes, like, no matter how deep he's gone into meditation, no matter how long he had been on his path, he's like, I don't think one of my neuroses has gone away. Not one of my neurotic tendencies have gone away. But it's just because you're sitting at a different place. You're sitting at a different level, so you're not swept up in your neuroses as you once were. You're not taking the bait of that mirage or that illusion. You're seeing it for what it is. You're not discounting it and pretending like it's not there, but you're seeing from greater levels of perception, and you're inclusive of the multidimensionality of the experience. You're not just getting lost in just one level of this entire experience. and discounting other parts of it, right? You're inclusive of the holistic journey, and because of that, you can meet all of it. Because of that, no matter how dull it gets, no matter how shitty it gets, there's also a certain amount of peace you have. You've left a little space for grace to come in and be like, ah, this is perfect, right? And how fucking crazy then do you come off to people when you're like, the shittiest things can be happening, and you're like, this is great, right? But that's the type of insanity that we want, right? We don't want the insanity of humanity, the insanity of getting swept up in the bullshit. We want like true freedom, right? We want true bliss, which is access through strengthening the spiritual eye, opening the spiritual eye. So let's see what else Spirit has for you in regards to this inspiration. So we have Nine of Pentacles. So yeah, you're definitely developing a sense of autonomous, like self-autonomy. I feel like, again, this is like, to me, like not placing your treasures up where moth and dust will corrupt. This reminds me of treasures, and this reminds me of like something being protected. So you're really learning how to cultivate this sense of independence from what's happening in your material world. And because of it, the more that you, again, the more that you seek the kingdom first and place your treasures up where moth and dust will not corrupt, the more that, you know, you will start to experience victory. Right, you start to experience, I did see at the bottom of your deck, you had the Three of Wands, which to me is a card about victory, or like accepting the challenge and knowing that you're going to triumph, right? Knowing that it's all going to be good. So yeah, maybe you guys are at a place of where like you're allowing, like you're at this space where there's just enough surrender within your field that you are going to be on the other side of this. I feel like maybe you even feel like you're quickly approaching the end of this dull period that you feel like you've been in. Yeah, Ace of Wands, acting on inspiration, not making inspiration not being there mean anything about you. We also have the Seven of Cups, so feeling very convoluted, feeling very lost. Maybe also there's like so many directions you can go, like you don't know which inspiration to follow. What else do we have? We have the Daughter of Pentacles, the Page of Pentacles. Yeah, so there's a lot here about like new beginnings and feeling like, okay, where do I go? Do I have all the tools that I need? Am I going to be able to make it? Right? We also have the Ace of Swords. So having a moment of clarity, a moment of truth, and not surprised, we have the Hanged Man. Yeah, so the more that you can remove yourself from feeling like you can do anything wrong, I feel like the less, like the less that we are absorbed in this idea that we can get it wrong, the more likely. I just saw 10:10 on the clock. So I feel like that is really just signifying a profound karmic cycle ending and something new beginning for you guys. But the more, it's interesting because the less likely we are afraid, or the less we are afraid of getting something wrong, the more likely we are to make decisions that are more in alignment with our soul stream and our soul's blueprint. It's like you can't get it wrong, but there's definitely more realities and more timelines that we can merge with that are going to allow in more of our soul stream and more of our, like, our uniqueness and our unique soul stream, our unique expression of source, like more of our higher self to come through, right? And so again, like understanding you can't make a wrong decision, releasing the pressure that, you know, you can get it wrong, or that you're not exactly where you're supposed to be. And because of that, you're going to have a lot of ideas. Because of that, you're going to have more moments of truth and clarity, and knowing which inspiration to act on, knowing which direction to go, right? I mean, with the Ace of Wands and the Ace of Swords to come up, like these are ultimate cards of, like, I feel like you guys are on the brink. Like, this is a powerful group. The other groups are extremely powerful too, but I am hearing that this lesson, this challenging lesson for my pile number 3 is like, you were on the brink of it becoming one of your greatest gifts, right? You were on the brink of mastery is what I'm hearing. And so maybe this is something that you've met time and time again, of like feeling very independent, feeling like you're on your game, feeling like you're doing all the right things, and then you meet a moment like you hit a brick wall and you're like, what the fuck, right? But it's just like, I feel like the more that you can, again, see it from the higher perspective, the more that you're suspending yourself above the realms of duality and above the realms of making it mean anything more than what it is, and just like, it's just all just passing show, the quicker that you find yourself in this, the quicker that you feel that moment of release, that moment of inspiration, that moment of like knowing, okay, I just went through this insane rebirth experience, now what, right? So that, again, there's this, I just keep feeling that sense you get after a really good cry, right? Like when you're like, you're just happy to be alive, and you're just so tender. Your heart is so tenderized and it's so open. It's open to all of the opportunities. It's open to 1, 2, 3, 4. It's open to new experiences. It's open to whatever new beginnings are wanting to be had, right? And there's also this, with this fawn here, there's like an innocence and a purity, right? That you guys are going to be feeling very soon. Because for a majority of you guys, I feel like it's just a necessity to reframe your ideas or your beliefs around lacking inspiration, or around feeling like you don't want to do something today, or feeling like you don't want to, start your spiritual business, or whatever it is for you guys, right? It's just like not getting caught up in the fucking bullshit. None of it means anything. None of it means anything, right? There's nothing you have to fucking do. There's so much freedom that comes from realizing that you don't have to do a goddamn thing. You do not have to do anything. Right? Let's just start from that baseline, right? That's a pretty good baseline to start from. Like, I don't have to do shit. I don't have to. But if I could do anything, which I essentially can, all within the context of your paradigms and what you actually deeply, your subtle body and nervous system tells you is possible, at least within this stage of your evolution, knowing that you can do anything, but you don't have to, what would you want to do? That's a really good place to work from in terms of following your whims and your fancies, or at least knowing which one to choose, knowing which idea to choose, or which option to invest in, right? What brings you the most expansion? What brings you the most sense of like fire and the most freedom within you? And the most, like, I'm also hearing, not only is this like a passionate, like feeling your passions, fueling your passions, and going towards what lights you on fire, but also what allows the most expansion of mind. Right? So fueling and expanding in creativity, but also expanding in perception and understanding like you are not bound to anything, like not binding yourself to any like portion of like timeline, time slot of reality, or whatever role you're playing at this point in time, whatever role you're playing at this point in time, whatever role you've ever played in this life, but truly just being in the here and now. Right? And from that, you will know which decision to go. From that, you will know which direction to turn to and what's the most right for you. But this is really about developing a certain level of autonomy within yourself that is born from true detachment. It's not that you're not engaging in your life, but you're engaging in your life because you know it's a play, and what the fuck else is there to do, right? You're here, you might as well play. Right? And so not taking it so seriously, and again, meeting it from this level of curiosity and this level of like a child. Like a child doesn't think that there's anything right or wrong, and a child just follows what feels the most right in that moment, and whatever emotional purges are happening, it doesn't judge itself, right? Children don't judge themselves for it. They just like let it move through them, and then because they let it move and they don't attach their identity to it, and they're not shaming themselves for having it, they're over it very quickly. All right, so there's a lot here about the realms of emotionality and the realms of like really your perception. We're going to end with these two channeled messages. So change your words and change your world. So this reminds me of the Ace of Wands. I just saw 1555 or 555, which is the ultimate number of change, right? So change your words. So essentially change what you're saying about it. Change the narrative, right? And you're going to change your experience around these things, right? It's like these things the same thing could be happening to you that's happening to another person, but based off of how the stories you're attaching to it, or choosing to not attach to it, so not attaching any story to it, will determine how long you're in there and where you go from there. And if you're choosing a cup that is like, kind of half full, kind of what you want, maybe choosing a cup out of scarcity, or like, I have to do this, because I should be doing something, right? Versus like, when you're saying a narrative that is much more freeing and much more like, oh, this is just part of it, here today, gone tomorrow, whatever, right? What the fuck ever, like not taking it so seriously. Then you're much more likely to be in the paradigm where you're going to choose the cup that is actually overflowing, right? With all the things that you really do want. Next, we have God's law as a law of love and goodwill. Yeah, so I feel, again, that goes back to me. That tells me more about like the stories you guys are telling. Make sure it's empowering. Your guides want you to tell a more empowering story about these dark nights of the soul and feeling like you lack inspiration, feeling like you're not in your entrepreneur business, or you don't have 80 million subscribers, or whatever the fuck it is, that we can get so lost in like even within these communities of like setting ourselves free, we can still get so lost. Like Ram Dass, I have a couple audibles of him, and was listening to the Becoming Nobody chapter where he is like talking about the different levels that he exists at. And he's like, so Ram Dass, for example, Ram Dass would be, you know, coming to an event and speaking, and he's like, Ram Dass would be, you know, speaking and setting people free, essentially. This is me paraphrasing. And he's like, Dick Alpert, which is like his real name, right? His birth name, I should say. Dick Alpert would be counting the house, you know, like how many people are here, and he's like, sometimes I would be mortified to see that Dick Alpert would then impersonate Ram Dass, right? So there's all these different levels that we're all existing on, right? And so it's like, don't take it so seriously. And also at the same time, like, understand that, you know, this is not punishment. This period you're in is not a punishment. I don't even know why I was guided to go to that story, but maybe you guys will make the connection somehow. But now I really want to figure out, I want to remember. I'm sure there was a relevancy behind that. Yeah, I feel like ultimately this is just like appreciating all the levels that are existing at once and not attaching your sense of identity to any of them. But there's a lot here about appreciating the multidimensional natures of things. Like that was coming through the very beginning from your guides, was like understanding the multiplicity of things, not getting lost in just one reality, or just like not getting lost in the world of form, or of all the paradoxes that tend to exist on Earth at this time, and all of the polarities that exist on Earth at this time, but really appreciating all of it, but not attaching your sense of identity to any of it. And because of that, you're going to move through these periods a lot quicker. You're not judging yourself, right? It's like you can exist on all of these levels at once, but ultimately remaining suspended, and knowing that you can't get it wrong, taking the pressure off yourself, knowing that you don't have to do a goddamn thing, right? Oh yeah, that's why what I was getting at is like how even in the spiritual communities, we can be all about, oh, love and light, and just like, you know, connect with source. But then meanwhile, they're like, how many subscribers do I have? How much money am I making? Like, how do I grow my, you know? And I'm guilty of it too. Like, I'm not saying I'm innocent here. I'm not trying to call anyone else out, but like, when you recognize that in yourself, you recognize that in others too. So it's just comical, right? Because we say we want one thing, and then it's like we're keeping ourselves tethered to realities and paradigms and ideas that are telling a much different story. So again, God's law is the law of love, and change your words. So change your narrative, and you're going to change your world quite rapidly, my pal number 3. So I'm going to leave this reading here for now. Please like this video if it resonated. Give it a thumbs up. That's the same thing. Comment down below any synchronicities, and subscribe if you've been here before, and I hope I see you soon. What's up, pal? For? So my bangs are just now starting to come back in. Y'all know that I made a big boo-boo in astrology, and I done got my hair cut during Venus fucking retrograde. So my bangs were like up to here. I don't know, because I'd been straightening my hair, so the curls kind of get longer. And so, you know, my hairstylist, like, she's a diva curl cut. I'm sorry. I'm eating into your reading, but she's a diva stylist. And so she like knows how to cut curly hair. But it was my boo-boo because I'd been straightening it. And then I went to get it done during Venus retrograde, and my bangs were like up to here, and I had a freaking mullet. Man, okay, so I'm glad we're on the other side of that. So I felt like I just needed to explain why I was doing that, because I'm like, yes, it's finally coming back. Okay, so we're going to get into what lesson has been challenging for my pal number 4s to integrate. What lesson has been challenging for you guys, and we're going to get advice from your guides along the way. I haven't looked at any of your cards. I see the bottom of the deck energy right here, just because having that flipped over in the beginning of the reading has been giving me a lot, like really great context, honestly. So we're going to start with your first oracle, the Goddess Oracle, pile number 4. So please, Spirit, tell us what lesson has been challenging for pile 4 to integrate. We have abundance, okay? So for you guys, this could be just like feeling like you're taken care of. I mean, I'm not surprised. This is definitely one of the codes that is very, or one of the misperceptions, misbeliefs, and just challenges that tends to be pretty rampant, or like this challenge is very abundant on the planet. Like, we'll just say that. But I feel like this has to do with, because we do have the Fool coming up as the bottom of the deck energy, I feel like this is really you feeling like you're creative, like really believing and buying into the paradigm that you can follow your bliss, that you can follow your bliss and it will essentially lead you to here, right? I feel like there's most certainly a sense of like being taken care of. We have the lotus flower here, which reminds me of like the crown chakra. This also reminds me of just like true spiritual awareness, like, you know, no mud, no lotus, that phrase. You know, lotus is being one of the most like divine, like a flower that represents like true divinity, and true divinity being born from suffering, right? And so I feel like for you guys, my pile number 4, it's really just, it's embracing the totality of the human experience, but also understanding that I feel like the energy I'm feeling from this group is like feeling like you're not where you're supposed to be, or maybe even getting down on yourself. Like, is this ever going to happen? Is this ever really possible? Can I really have like abundance raining down on me just by following my bliss, right? And we're going to get deeper into like the multidimensional layers of this, because these piles and readings have been very multifaceted. But ultimately, I feel like Spirit is reminding you of like what you're planting your seeds in. So if you're doing your best, right, you're planting your seeds in wisdom, you're planting your seeds in love. You're doing it not because you're worried about the fruitage, but because you don't know what else you'd be doing. You just want to give for the pure sake of giving. You know, that's how you can be sure that you are going to meet these levels of abundance and this level of innocence and purity within yourself that you so deeply crave. Pile number 4. It's like the place you're sitting in is what matters the most, right? And so, I'm sorry, excuse me. So I feel like for you, this could have to do with abundance on every level, but not misplacing where abundance is really born from. I was just drawn to the fact that she has her crown chakra. I just saw 333. The fact that I'm about to say this totally feeds into each other, but the ascended masters and the saints like Jesus and like other saintly pictures that we see throughout the time, they have this golden aura around their crown. This means that their crown is illuminated. They're illumined beings. That means that it is not them that does the good works, right? The good works that is born of them is born from God, born from source, right? And so they're essentially beings that have achieved like a deep state of like true prosperity. True prosperity, like true wealth, is not something that you can see. Sorry, I'm getting a lot of downloads at once. It's not something that you can see. It's not something that's tangible. And so laying your treasures up where moth and dust will not corrupt, right? So turning first and foremost to making conscious connection, right? There's like this great book called The Surrender Experiment. What I love about this book is like this guy dedicated his whole life. Like he had his first, I feel like his major awakening was when he was in his early 20s, and really devoted his entire life to like meditation and surrendering, right? And it's so beautiful. I highly recommend that book if you're drawn to pile 4, if you haven't read it, or at least read it again, The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer, because he talks about his life of just like truly giving up, right? Getting the fuck out of his own way and what he thinks he wants. And because of that, like, man, there's some incredible things in there that would talk about he's running out of money to build this like retreat center that he's been guided by Spirit to build. And he said checks would show up in the mail just when they're on their last round of like having enough lumber. Like anonymous checks would show up in the mail for just the right amount of money, right? So this is like the level of miracle that Spirit wants you to operate from. This is the level of abundance Spirit is trying to usher you into. This is why this lesson has been so challenging, because it really requires you to extricate yourself from the 3D narrative, the third dimensional narrative of where abundance and where prosperity is born from. This is really accentuating the fact that putting your spiritual connection first and foremost, putting your dharma first and foremost. There was something else that was coming through, but I have a feeling it'll come through a little bit later as we move on through the reading. So what else, Spirit, about pile 4? So the mirror. Yeah, how is this showing you? Like, what is this inviting you into, right? What is this here to reflect back to you? This sense of like a lack of abundance, because there is the moon coming up here too. Like this talks to me about just understanding these illusions, understanding these misperceptions. I'm also like hearing like smoke and mirrors. So there's a lot of misperceptions I feel for my pile number 4s around money, right? There's a lot that you came here to clear generationally, I'm hearing, that is influencing this lesson that has felt so challenging for you to integrate. There's a lot here about smoke and mirrors, not really seeing, not being able to fully see it for what it is, like grasping at straws. Let's get deeper in with the tarot. But ultimately, I feel like I keep hearing fractal, like you're only seeing one dimension of it, or there's like a fractal, you're seeing like a tiny sliver of something, and it's like you're unable to see the full picture of something, which is why this lesson has been so challenging for you to integrate, is because the level that you're meeting it at is not the level of depth that's required for you to activate that abundance code, right? So it's like these appearances externally aren't needed, right? When we are integrating the lesson. It's like if you think of a university, for example, or just school in general. If you have a kid that is like in 3rd grade math and they're showing 5th grade skills, you're not going to keep them in the 3rd grade. You're going to be like, all right, you obviously don't need to go through this. You've already integrated, you know, the lesson. You've already integrated the lesson plan or like the learning. You don't need to do this, right? So be sure that because it's part of your experience, A, it's not a punishment, and B, it's because there's part of this lesson plan that you're not quite seeing. You're only seeing a fractal of it. You can understand, for my Pile 4, you understand that it's an internal thing. You understand that your relationship to abundance is off. That's something that you are getting, right? There's a part of it that you're not certain how it can actually be a reality for you. There's part of it that the way that you're going about it might be off. We're going to get deeper in with the tarot. Maybe it could even be something as like a misperception of like what it is that you think that you want that will make you happy, but then what actually is written in your soul's blueprint of like, this will be the most fulfilling. Those might be different, right? Those might not be one and the same. So one thing that I realized that I integrated along my journey of like being a fitness instructor, for example, was I felt like I had to show up. If I wanted powerful classes, I thought that it looked like A, B, C, and D. And so I would sometimes force it. I would force myself to be powerful and to be confident and, you know, however I thought that was supposed to be. And those classes were good, you know, they're great, but it still felt off, even though like externally it looked all the ways that I thought it should look and that other people, you know, thought it should look, and I got the validation, right? The accolades, whatever. But there was something off about it. But the days that I would go in completely surrendered and just like, some of the days that I felt really raw and really tender and just like open, right? Those would be some of my best classes. And I started to notice there was a difference between like forcing your power and surrendering to your power. And I feel like that just might be the angle that Spirit's coming at this for, or coming at this from, of like, you might feel like it's supposed to look a certain way, or the way that you're achieving it, it has to look a certain way. But the pathway is actually different than what you assume, right? And it's much more in alignment with your true nature. So there's a difference between like, again, playing the part that you think you need to play, that, you know, society tells you should play in order to be happy, A, B, C, D. And then there's what's actually authentic to you, right? Which sometimes can look drastically different. But what you feel is what's important, right? How expansive you feel and how just like deeply confident, true confidence. Like true confidence is not that you don't feel insecurities, or, you know, that you don't have these very human emotives, but it's because you're rooted in something that's so authentic to you that those don't sway you. Those don't like, those can't take you out like they did before when you were pretending to be someone who you're not, right? Or when you're trying to embody someone else's code, someone else's blueprint because it looks nice on them, but it's not actually authentic and in alignment with your authenticity, with your soul's blueprint, your soul stream. All right, so let's get deeper into this. So we have the Devil. Yeah, so there's definitely some misperceptions. This has like karmic, I'm hearing something about karmic tendencies, and this is generational karma too, in terms of this lesson, this challenge. It is karmic in nature. So, you know, not getting swept up. That's why it feels so bound, like you can't get past it. 11:11 on the clock. You can't get past it, right? It's because there's a deep lesson here. And I love that the Devil, like in this deck, has the pentacle on it, because it does talk about the world of form, right? Feeling bound to the world of form, feeling like you can't, for the life of you, get free of this, right? And so, yeah, let's get deeper into how we can help set Pile 4 free in terms of abundance, experiencing true abundance. We have the Knight of Pentacles, so slow and steady, okay? So not thinking, like, I feel like sometimes too, we can get lost in the instant gratification mentality, right? And you know, the Bhagavad Gita talks about like living your dharma. I feel like sometimes we can have this over glamorized sense of what that looks like. Please check out my video, you guys, about it's called moving beyond the narrative and into your dharma on my main channel. That's my latest video, like longer video. It's just under an hour. But I talk about all of this and how, like, if you think it's going to be easy, if if you're tuning into teachers that are like, you're just going to law of attraction, you're just going to visualize and it's going to be so easy. It's like, you're in for disappointment. It's like when you're on the path of dharma, when you're on the path of like releasing yourself from the grip hold of karma and from, your deepest fears and your deepest insecurities, it's fucking messy. When you really hold that mirror up to yourself and see how broken and shattered you are, 1, 2, 3, 4 on the clock, and see how these like fractals of yourself have been trying to create your life for you, like, I mean, more power to you and just like blessings. Like, that takes a lot of strength, but when you really start to meet yourself, it is not always a comfortable experience, right? And so this tells me slow and steady. You guys might have this instant gratification mentality that has infiltrated your paradigm, like it has most of us in modern culture. And this might be really saying, like, you have a lot of wherewithal. This is the night, so there's a lot of energy and a lot of momentum. Like, this guy's gonna go far, but he's just at the beginning. And so he needs to acknowledge, there's a necessity to acknowledge exactly where you're at, and your expectations might actually be keeping you bound to the sense of, I'm not on my timeline. Your expectations of like where you should be or how fast it's worked out for other people or whatever could be keeping you, tethering you to this karma even more, right? It almost looks like this guy is like looking straight at the karma, right? And almost like bowing to him, right? But it's like, don't get lost up in that, right? You don't know how many lifetimes people have been preparing for something. You don't know what their role is. You don't know what their lessons are, right? And don't get swept up in this idea of like what it looks like on the outside, because what things look like on the outside and what's actually happening internally can be two completely different things, and I can speak from experience. There have been times where people have taken my picture, for example, and I keep talking about fitness, but I learned a lot through that like little pressure cooker period that I was a fitness instructor. But I taught one time in front of 400 people. That was a huge step for me, right? And I saw there's this picture that maybe I can find for you guys at some point, but there's this picture of me teaching and I'm smiling, I look great, and on the outside, I have it together, right? I blacked out. I couldn't even tell you. I don't even remember. I heard it was pretty good. I heard Marissa did a really good job. But, that's where don't be fooled by appearances. Just because someone comes across confident and they come across as having their shit together, you don't actually know what's going on internally, right? And so that's the level that I feel like the spiritual journey really brings us to, is not needing it to look like any type of way, or not getting caught up in like needing other people to believe a certain narrative about us or believe that we are coming across a certain way. It's just doing the fucking work, putting your nose to the grindstone or putting your nose, pedal to the metal, whatever it is, and just fucking doing the work, doing the deep cleaning, releasing your attachments, releasing yourself from expectations of who you were, of who you should be for anybody, and just what is going to set me free. Right? And that internal level of freedom, it's only a matter of time before you start to see that reflected back to you externally. So put that first, put the horse in front of the carriage, not worried about the external show and what people think of you, whatever, right? You're binding yourself if that's the level that you're coming from. You're creating more karma, right? But really living from this level of what the fuck is really important. And I feel like that's one of the reasons why this lesson has felt so like karmic and so like I can't get past it, and how can I just experience the level of abundance that I know I deeply feel like I'm here to experience, like a life that is comfortable, a life that is unplugged from the matrix, a life where you're helping other people to do the same thing, where you are a mirror for other people unto themselves. It's like one of the reasons why this feels so karmic and so challenging for you is because you're going to help other people with it. You're going to help other people reframe their perspective and to tweak internally. You're going to help them too. So you have to know all the pitfalls, right? You have to know the inner workings of this type of journey, right? So next we have the 4 of Wands. So yeah, home life, stability, feeling successful, right? I always see this as the eye. Like I always see this as a third eye, right? So I feel like seeing the spiritual nature behind things, not getting swept up in the bullshit. Again, not getting swept up in this idea that it's going to come easy, it's going to come fast. It's like, that's not what this journey is about. If you wanted that type of journey, you wouldn't have taken a birth on planet Earth, right? Because things are very slow moving. Things can be very slow and steady. This is what I talk to my beings that, don't resonate with Earth being their native planet, and it's very clear they come from much higher densities, where the space between wanting something or thinking something or being like, hey, that'd be fun, and then it actually appearing in their reality is a lot shorter. right? It's a bit more prolonged on earth, and that's where this frustration can come into place, because it's like, you're like, but it's easy. This comes easy to me usually. But different laws operating here, my friends, right? And so there's a necessity to just kind of like, again, one foot in front of the other, like one day at a time. And truly honoring and enjoying the entirety of the experience accelerates our timeline so much. But it's that catch-22, because you can't release it because you just have to release it, because what the fuck else are you gonna do? Be miserable? No, it's like, you can't fool God, right? It's just like this very delicate balance of not trying to put on a show for anyone, not trying to get to the end when you haven't actually gone through that process of transmutation, right? That process of purification. So lastly, we have the Five of Swords coming up. Yeah, so I feel like cutting through the bullshit. Seeing things, the 5 cards represents seeing things as they actually are and not as we want them to be, right? And so I feel like this is like, you might have been tuning into teachers and like law of attraction with this card, again, the third eye, like I think of like visualization, like teachers that are like promising you the world through visualization and etc. And like, but that leave you in a space of feeling like where you're at right now is not perfect and not where you're supposed to be. If it wasn't relevant for you, you wouldn't be experiencing it, you know, remember that. So tuning into teachers that are coming from a true place of wisdom and not like this fast fashion type of spirituality, right? We want the timeless spirituality. What have the mystics and the sages and, you know, beings, wise beings that are truly happy and have true prosperity, what have they been saying? What, like that wisdom that doesn't age quickly, right? We have life and death are in the power of the tongue. So your narrative, what you're speaking. So essentially this is like, to me, like life being truth and death being illusion. So the narratives that you're saying, how you're painting a picture, are you believing, like what, are you tethering yourself to ideas and realities that are perpetuating illusion, right? Or are you tethering yourself to ideas and realities that are perpetuating truth? What is truth? How do we tune into truth? Truth is that which is unchanging, right? So going more into that place within you that is unchanging, meeting God within that place that is unchanging, right? Developing again, wrapping back full circle, coming full circle with the crown chakra here, right? Allowing God to be what is operating through your affairs. Lastly, we have, I expect the unexpected. My glorious good now comes to pass. So yeah, I mean, this and life and death are in the power of the tongue. You guys might have been, maybe for some of you, you're too aware of what things are and how it's been. I feel like it's again, that delicate balance of being like, not making where you are mean anything negative, like being like, okay, this is where I am, this is where I'm, like, you have to be honest about where you're at when you're starting any type of journey, because then you need to know, like, okay, what are the resources I need along the way, like, how do I get to where I want to be, right? So being honest where you are, but also leaving space for grace is what my guides call it. Leaving space for the unexpected, leaving space for miracles to come through and to work through you. And oftentimes, it's like when we're not perpetuating these narratives, these karmic narratives, this subconscious, like, trying to tell us what's up, right? What the fuck is up? And again, letting, like, meditating, right? Space for grace. Contemplation, not taking it so seriously. Like, how can you live? How can you already assure yourself the fact that you're already on this paradigm, or that you're already on this timeline, I mean, right? So, you know, things that like allow you to feel this state of abundance that is not born from money, right? Money and abundance are not the same thing, my friends. And so I feel like that's a big part of what is so challenging about this lesson is like, you know that, I feel like you deeply feel that, but then how does this translate into my reality? When am I actually going to see the fruits of it? And I'm hearing again, unless ye be like little children, ye cannot enter the kingdom. So not taking it so seriously, right? There's like the wisest of beings. There's like this phase in awakening where we can take it so seriously. And eventually we wake up out of that, right? We see how unless we are also playful, and if we're taking ourselves too seriously, we're also missing the mark, right? If we're like, oh, that's too low vibe, or I can't eat that, or I can't be around that person, or I can't watch that show, or I can't listen to that ludicrous song. That's been me. My advice lately has been ludicrous. But like that's also getting lost in it, right? You're just as bound, right? You're still bound. You're still bound to your ideas of, like Ram Dass would often say, I don't want to be, you realize that it's not just about being high, it's about being free. And being free is being okay if you go low, and not making high or low mean anything about you, because you're beyond it all, right? And so I feel like you guys this is a very advanced lesson. So I'm not surprised why it feels like such a challenge, but slow and steady. Don't try to rush the process. Enjoy the process, and know that, know that I expect the unexpected. My glorious good now comes to pass. It's inevitable, right? It is inevitable. It is inevitable. I am seeing it's inevitable, and a big part of it is about putting the horse in front of the carriage. Conscious connection with source as much as you can, right? And leaving space for grace, not thinking that you know where it's going, that you think you know the best way to get there, but just allowing God to just source, whatever you want to call it, to guide your affairs. So Pile 4, I'm going to leave this here for now. If this brought clarity, confirmation, peace to your heart, please give this video a thumbs up, comment any synchronicities down below, subscribe if you've been here before, and I hope I see you soon.